He was just a janitor. No one greeted him, no one looked up. Until he signed the firing decision. An office where power blinds people. A man who chose silence over fame. And a lesson that made the whole company bow their heads. Is it too late to be kind? Don't miss it, because maybe you have also passed by someone like him. The soft sound of a broom sweeping across the marble floor echoed in the ground floor lobby. The plastic wheels of a cleaning cart rolled across each tile. No one paid attention to the man who was bending down to wipe up a coffee stain someone had just spilled. It was James Miller. This man had appeared in economic magazines honored as one of the most influential businessmen in America. The head of Miller & Company, an empire that owns dozens of subsidiaries in many fields from technology to real estate. But today he was not sitting in a luxurious conference room. No formal suit, no secretary by his side, no flashlights or interview microphone. Instead, James wore the gray-blue uniform of a cleaning staff. He held a mop in one hand, a bag of tools on his shoulder, and a streak of dust on his face from cleaning the ceiling. No one in this office building recognized who he was. They only saw a new cleaner. James worked hard, carefully cleaning every corner of the wall, every step, not missing even the smallest stain. He did not talk to anyone. He just observed. Quietly, patiently, and silently remembered every action, every behavior of the people in the building that he himself founded. It was almost 6 a.m. The office was still dark. There was only the dim light of the hallway and the small sound of the vacuum cleaner. James stopped when he saw an elderly woman, Mrs. Mai, also a cleaner, sitting on the chair, waiting for the elevator, coughing continuously. "Do you need water?" he asked softly. Mrs. Mai looked at the strange man in surprise. "Are you a new employee? Few people here ask about me." James smiled, giving her a small bottle of mineral water from the tool cart. "I just thought anyone who comes to work this early might need a little encouragement." Mrs. Mai looked at him gratefully. No one knew it was the first time James had returned to his own company headquarters after 2 years of volunteering in remote rural areas. He wanted to see if his company still had humanity, and the best way to do it was from the most overlooked role, a cleaning staff. At 7:15, the office lights began to turn on. Employees in business suits walked in with coffee in hand, headphones in their ears, their eyes hurried. No one greeted each other. James had just finished cleaning the glass wall of the ground floor conference room when he heard the sound of high heels clicking steadily on the floor. A woman in a pastel pink vest, her hair tied up high, holding a cup of Starbucks coffee, walked over. Her face was carefully made up. Her eyes were as sharp as knives. It was Dana Lewis, the building's administrative manager. James had heard this name before in meetings. She was the one who supervised all subordinates, had the authority to approve working hours schedules and internal discipline. As soon as she saw James cleaning the main hallway floor, Dana frowned in annoyance. "You there!" she shouted in the middle of the hall. "What are you doing wiping so slowly? Do you know that the boss will pass by here at 8 o'clock? If you leave any stains, I will immediately make a report." James raised his head. His eyes were still calm, showing no anger. "Sorry, I will pay more attention," he replied softly, then continued to bend down to work. Dana did not stop there. She walked closer, looked at the cleaning cloth, and pouted. "Oh my God, where did you find these old-fashioned cleaning men? Everything is slow and you talk so softly. Nowadays you have to be fast, neat, and efficient, you know." There were a few young employees around who witnessed it. They turned away, pretending not to see. No one said anything. James finished wiping the floor, gently pushed the cart away. He heard every scolding word Dana said, but he did not respond, not resentful. He just remembered silently for a more appropriate time. Behind the glass of the office, some employees secretly pointed outside. That uncle must have just come in. He was scolded by Dana until he was exhausted. Yeah, if you do cleaning, you have to endure being scolded. You're lucky to earn money. Little did they know that Uncle was the one who signed the decision to hire them. He was the one behind the funding for the new office technology system they used every day. It was almost noon. The office atmosphere became more bustling. Everyone was busy preparing to welcome the international delegation from the Singapore branch. This was a very important strategic cooperation signing ceremony with the participation of many senior leaders from partner corporations. James quietly cleaned the main lobby area. He wiped each glass door, adjusted the potted plants placed near the walkway. Still holding a wet towel in his hand, his eyes occasionally stopped at the busy faces inside. At that moment, the familiar sound of high heels rang out again. Dana appeared holding a tablet in her hand. She saw James wiping the glass, immediately frowned, and turned to the group of assistants walking beside him. "Oh my God," she said in English, intentionally letting the group of guests hear. "Sorry about the mess. Our janitor's a bit slow sometimes." The words were as light as the wind, but they stabbed straight into the hearts of the listeners like a knife. The people in the delegation just smiled faintly, then continued to walk into the conference room. A few young employees standing nearby looked at each other, saying nothing, but in their eyes was pity. Pity for the man standing there holding a towel, sweat beading on his forehead. James remained silent. He just bent down, continuing to wipe the remaining dirt on the glass door. His face did not change color, but in his eyes there was something deep, a little sad, a little calm, and a sober observation. In the corner of the hallway, a young employee named Sam, who had only been working for 3 months, stood leaning against the wall, witnessing everything. He looked at James, then at Dana. His eyes drooped slightly. As someone who had grown up in poverty, Sam understood what it felt like to be looked down upon. A moment later, James pushed the tool cart past Sam. He hesitated and said softly, "I apologize for them, Uncle. Not everyone here acts like that." James paused for a second. He looked at Sam, smiling. "Thank you. Just one person like you is enough to make me believe that this place is still decent." Sam didn't understand why the janitor's eyes were so warm, not like the eyes of a resigned person, but like of someone who had gone very far, climbed very high, then turned back to look at life from a different angle. At that time, inside the conference room, Dana was presenting the project in a confident voice. "We put efficiency first. There will be no room for slow or weak people." James stood outside, wiping clean the sign in front of the door. He heard everything, every word, every sound, and each cold judgment from the very manager who was representing the company he founded. And in that moment he knew it was time for him to take action, not to retaliate, but to purify, so that this company, which he built with trust and human values, would not become a soulless machine run by unscrupulous people. The meeting officially began at 1 p.m. The 12th floor conference room was brightly lit. The air conditioner was running smoothly, and a large screen displayed the company logo and the project name, Future Nexus, Global Innovation Partnership. Dana sat at the head of the table, posing with a professional and authoritative air. She was the one coordinating this meeting, representing the leadership. In her hands was a detailed presentation that she had prepared for a week. Assistants, translators, technical staff, all were ready. James was in the hallway. He was wearing rubber gloves, holding a trash bag. He was part of the wall. No one noticed, no one greeted, and no one knew that he was the one who had written the strategic plan being presented inside. Dana's voice came clearly through the crack in the door. "We believe that with the budget, the entire new office system will be 30% more efficient. The company will eliminate unnecessary parts and replace them with automated systems. We will not tolerate delays even from humans." James stood there, his eyes on the frosted glass reflecting his own reflection. A simple man, no tie, no title, no flattery. He listened, every word, every idea, every statement as if people were a burden and efficiency was the only measure. The door opened a little. A technician stepped out to call the logistics department. James stepped back gently out of the way. No one said thank you, not a nod, just a janitor standing in the wrong place. He walked toward a nearby water purifier. Stand still, silently, waiting, not to drink, but to think. Dana inside continued her presentation. "We need to change the lower-level personnel. I believe the current housekeeping and logistics departments need a refresher. They are slow, not adapting to technology. I will present the list of recommendations to the company president next week." James closed his eyes slightly. The list of layoffs. The reason slow, outdated, inefficient. Not a single line mentioned dedication, loyalty, or character. He thought of Mrs. May, the old woman coughing this morning. He thought of Sam, the young employee who had apologized on behalf of the entire office. And he thought of the people who had silently devoted themselves for years only to have a name on the refresher list. No, this company had strayed too far from the values he had founded. Suddenly, a small sound rang in James's pocket. The old phone vibrated. The message was from his personal secretary, the only person who knew he was here today. The content was brief. "The paperwork to transfer the right to make personnel decisions has been completed. Just need your confirmation." James looked at the message. His finger moved slowly across the screen. Without thinking for long, he pressed send. Inside the conference room, Dana had just finished her presentation. She stood up, adjusted her shirt, and nodded to the partner representatives. Her face was full of confidence. "We believe this is a breakthrough step, helping the company become stronger, leaner, and more professional." Outside in the hallway, James turned and walked away. The old shoes made a light click on the clean stone floor. Step by step, step by step. Calm, decisive. No one needed to look. No one needs to know. Because he knows. In just a few hours, everything will change. The afternoon passed slowly. The weak sunlight slanted through the ground floor glass doors. The office was still bustling, but James chose to retreat to the small break room at the end of the corridor. It was a room reserved for logistics staff only. There was no air conditioning, no comfortable leather chairs, just a few plastic chairs, a water dispenser, and an old mini-fridge. James sat down on the chair, leaned back. He wasn't physically tired. It was just, sometimes the contempt of the world made people feel depressed. The door opened. Mrs. Moy, the oldest cleaner here, walked in. In her hand was a small loaf of bread. She sat down next to James, breathing heavily. "My back hurts so much. If I sit down, I don't want to get up again." James turned to him. "Have you eaten anything? Here's a loaf of bread. Half in the morning, half in the afternoon, to ease my stomach." She smiled, not sadly, just honestly. James quietly took a protein bar from his pocket and handed it to her. "Try this. It's better than dry bread." Mrs. Mai was surprised. Then she laughed and took it. "You're so kind. Have you been here long?" James smiled. "Just recently." "Probably just today." She nodded. "Yeah. But today I feel better than usual. Someone is willing to ask how you are. Someone is willing to look me in the eye when talking." James said nothing more. He just sat there sharing the silence with her. No one needed to know who he was. Just a minute of peace was enough to ease a day of being despised. Afternoon. The office gradually quieted down. Employees left their desks preparing to go home. Lights gradually turned off in areas that were not needed. Only a few soft tapping sounds and the sound of glass doors opening and closing were left. James stood in the corner of the hallway. In his hand was a mop that had just been wrung dry. The sunset shone obliquely, making the silver in his hair visible. Mrs. Mai waved goodbye to him before leaving. The receptionist rushed past, not having time to look. Only Sam, the young employee, stopped for a few seconds. "I wish you a nice evening." James nodded, smiling. 8 p.m. The internal announcement was sent to the entire company's email. The subject line was very short: personnel announcement. Dana was in her 12th floor office when she heard her phone ring. She looked at the screen. An email from the group executive board. She opened it, unconsciously biting her lip. The content was only a few lines due to inappropriate behavior. Ms. Dana Lewis will be officially terminated from her employment as of today. The decision was signed by President James Miller. All benefits are guaranteed according to regulations. Dana stood still. The cup of coffee in her hand fell to the carpet without her noticing. Her hands trembled. Her eyes widened, turning red. She hurried out of the room, going straight to the ground floor. The elevator stopped. The door opened. In front of her was James, still in the same old cleaning uniform, still with calm eyes, still the familiar face, the one she had scolded this morning. Dana choked. "You are..." James looked at her. His voice was low and soft. "We met this morning. You told me to wipe faster. You said I was slow." She took a step back. Her chest heaved. "No, it can't be. You're the president." James nodded. "Yes, and I've seen with my own eyes how you treat those less fortunate." Dana sank into a chair in the hallway. No one spoke. The office was quiet. All sound seemed to have disappeared. James turned. Walking slowly, the light from the ceiling fell on his back, casting long shadows. A man walked past those who had despised him with the air of a leader who didn't need to shout to be respected. The next morning, 7:45. The atmosphere in the office was completely different. Everyone was whispering. The message from last night had spread like wildfire. Did Dana really get fired? Who signed the decision I heard? The company president personally signed it. Who is the president? I haven't seen him in 2 years. The chatter echoed throughout the floors, from the administration office to the reception desk to the lunchroom. Everyone was confused, also curious, and a little worried. Dana had disappeared. No one saw her return to the company. The seat was empty, the laptop was locked, the access card was revoked. Everything happened in silence, but clearly and decisively. In an emergency meeting at 9 o'clock, the HR department was ordered to send an email introducing, "The group would like to introduce Mr. James Miller, Chairman and CEO, who will directly coordinate internal activities in the coming time." That name made many people pause. James Miller. This name sounded familiar, but no one knew what he looked like. Only seen in the newspaper a few years ago. After that, he disappeared from the media, withdrew from management, delegated authority to subordinates. Now, suddenly returned. And then rumors began to appear. A security guard said, "I swear yesterday he mopped the floor on the ground floor. I even asked for the mop he was holding to replace it." A receptionist whispered, "I gave him the key to the cleaning cabinet yesterday morning. He didn't say anything, just nodded and thanked him." Then Sam, the young employee, walked into the room. His eyes widened, his mouth almost froze. That window cleaner yesterday is the president. No one laughed, no one joked. because the silence of the conference room was converging on a truth that no one dared to deny. The person the entire office had passed by, had despised, had criticized, was the person with the highest power in the place. James didn't need to enter the room to scare everyone, just for everyone to realize he had always been there, silently observing and remembering. That afternoon, Sam was called to the 20th floor. It was the executive office, a place he had never dared to enter since he started working. The door was open. There was no receptionist, no guard. There was only a large desk, a few potted plants, and soft piano music coming from the ceiling speakers. James was standing by the window. He was wearing a white shirt, slacks, and no tie. Not at all like Sam's image of a boss, but he was indeed him. The cleaner from yesterday. James turned around. "Sit down." Sam walked slowly to the chair, his heart pounding in his chest, not because he was afraid, but because he felt embarrassed. James sat down opposite. His voice was deep and warm. "Thank you for talking to me yesterday." Sam bowed his head. "I'm sorry, I don't know who you are." James chuckled. "It's because you don't know who I am that your words are valuable. Most people are only kind to those they can benefit from." Sam looked up. "But I don't understand. Why do you do that job?" James looked out the window where tall buildings lined up before him. "Did you know that I started my career as a soccer field cleaner?" Sam's eyes widened. "Really?" "Yes. I was 18, no money, no degree. I worked for hire herd. Curses was despised. But I learned a lot. I learned to see people not by their suits, but by the way they treated those weaker than themselves." James turned his eyes deep and steady. "I didn't try anyone yesterday. I just came back to see what my company had become." Sam swallowed. His heart was beating fast. Not because he was afraid of being blamed, but because he realized humility was something many people were losing. James continued, "You are one of the few people who makes me feel hopeful. Not because of your position, not because of flattery, just because you are kind." Sam choked up. Thank you. I didn't think something as small as that would mean so much." James nodded. Sometimes a gentle word can save the humanity of an entire system. There was no long-winded moral lesson, no punishment, no scolding, just a conversation between two men, one old, one young, looking at the truth. That humility is never weakness, and kindness doesn't have to be preached. The afternoon was slow. The office atmosphere was no longer filled with familiar greetings. Instead, there were furtive glances, whispers, uneasy sighs. Some people started typing the name James Miller into Google. The screen showed a series of old newspaper articles, a picture of him in a gray suit shaking hands with heads of state. The headline was in bold, Chairman James Miller, the man who built an empire from scratch. The marketing staff who had glared at James while he was mopping the floor now stood still staring at the screen. His mouth opened and closed, unable to say a word. The receptionist, who had once urged James to move aside for guests, now looked down every time his name was mentioned. She remembered the look in his eyes that day. Not angry, not blaming, just sad. And then someone said what everyone was thinking: if he really observed everything, then we've exposed ourselves. A group of young employees began to discuss yesterday morning's incident. One of them recalled I saw Dana scold him in front of foreign guests, and in English. How humiliating. Another chimed in. The other day, he asked to ride the elevator and I told him to clean the stairs for good health. Oh my God, I wanted to bury myself. The atmosphere in the office was somber. No one laughed loudly like usual. No one dared to talk loudly about gossiping about their colleagues. James's presence, even if not directly, was now like a mirror. A mirror does not reflect appearance. It reflects the heart. On the fourth floor, the logistics team leader, Mr. Carl, who was known for his arrogance, sat silently in the small conference room. He remembered how he had pointed at James when he accidentally bumped into the tool cart. "What kind of business is this? Are you blind?" That day, James had just bowed his head, not saying a word, and he had raised his voice in front of everyone. Now, Carl did not dare to look at anyone. He knew, if James remembered, if he had written everything down, then tomorrow his name might be on the next announcement. Panic spread. No one was sure if they would still have their seats, because now they understood what they had done, even if it was just for a moment, was witnessed, not by the camera, but by a person who knew how to listen, how to be silent, and how to forgive. The question grew in everyone's mind. How will he deal with me? Is it too late to be kind? 9:00 a.m. the next morning. An urgent announcement was sent to all employees via email and the internal speaker system. A company-wide meeting, held in the large hall on the 10th floor. Attendance was mandatory. No explanation given. No one knew what was going to happen. The hall was filled with employees. The dim yellow lights gently covered the seats. No one spoke. No one joked like usual. There was only silence and waiting. Then James stepped out. No microphone, no secretary to introduce. He walked straight up to the stage, picked up a simple microphone. He was not wearing a suit, still wearing a white shirt and simple trousers. Below, a few people held their breath. Some eyes were downcast. Others were wide open, full of guilt. James stood up straight. His voice rang out slowly. "Hello, everyone. My name is James Miller, the president of this company." The room was completely silent. Some bit their lips. Some shrank back. Some turned to look at their colleagues, eyes bewildered. James looked down. His gaze was not blaming, just calm. "I apologize for not being around, for giving power to people I thought would represent the values of this place." He paused, then continued. "I came back 3 days ago, not as a leader, but as the lowest person in this system. I wanted to see what we had become." All eyes were now turned upward. No blinking, no moving. "I've heard the way you talk about the cleaners. I've seen the way you ignore your colleagues, the way some people see kindness as weakness, see status as a reason to dictate." James turned, pointing to the big screen behind him. The image appeared, a hallway camera recording Dana's scolding of him. No flash, no special effects, just the truth. Some people bowed their heads, some covered their faces. James turned, but I also saw hope. I saw a young employee stop in the middle of the hallway and apologize on behalf of the entire office. He smiled, and that tells me this place is still worth saving. He stepped off the stage, walking slowly through the rows. "You don't need to apologize to me. I don't need excuses. I just need you to change." The entire hall stood still as if frozen. In that moment, everyone knew. This meeting was not about firing, it was about reflecting on ourselves. After the meeting that morning, the whole office was silent. No one said anything, but everyone saw themselves in the mirror. That afternoon, Sam went to the logistics room. He gave Mrs. May a hot lunchbox. "You should have lunch. I'll pay for the canteen today." Mrs. Mai was surprised. For the first time in many years of working here, a young person remembered her during a meal. On the ground floor, a young office worker borrowed a mop from James. "Let me help you clean a section so you can rest a bit." James said nothing. He just nodded and smiled. Some people started taking out their own trash. They washed their own coffee cups instead of leaving them for the cleaners. They learned to say thank you to the janitors who passed by. No need for anyone to shout. No need for rules. Just a small change from the seemingly invisible. And that same day, James walked out of the building without anyone calling him boss. Only one guard bowed deeply. Thank you for coming back. Monday morning. The office unexpectedly received an envelope with the name James Miller. To all employees. It wasn't an email, it wasn't a notice posted. It was a handwritten letter neatly placed on each desk. Someone read it aloud. Someone read it silently. Someone folded it halfway, saying nothing. Inside, neatly written, I'm not writing this as president, but as someone who has been looked down upon, someone who has worked with their hands, someone who believes that kindness begins with the smallest kindness. If you hurt someone yesterday, apologize. If you've ever looked down on someone, take a step back. We don't have to be geniuses, just be human. There was no signature at the end of the letter. There was just a simple handwritten note, I'll be back. If you need me, not because I'm the boss. That afternoon, James left the building alone. No shuttle, no bodyguard. Just a man in a plain shirt holding an old leather briefcase walking down the windy street. His shadow stretched across the sidewalk. Someone ran after him to see him off, but he just turned back, smiling softly. Don't see the cleaners off. We're used to leaving quietly, and then he disappeared around the corner. No background music, no applause, just silence. And an office that was changing little by little, starting with the most invisible person.